Welcome back to In the Garden. I'm here with Jordan from Grange Co-op, and we're talking about planting some summer vegetables in your garden bed. Here we have tomatoes. Now we did this earlier. As you can see, she's grown, and we might need to do some pruning. Where should we clip if we're trying to prune plants that get to this size?
Sure. So for those who are watching, this tomato did not have it had a great head start, and it's already tripled in size. So the first thing we want to do is get rid of any wasted effort on the tomatoes plant. These low-growing, sprawling things are only going to end up taking shade or taking light from other plants nearby, or worse, tomatoes are going to be on the ground, exposed to insects and what have you. The other thing we want to make sure we're doing is that any of these suckers that are going straight out, we're probably going to take off. We want a lot of the growth up top, and you can see this one's already flowering. Within a couple weeks, it's probably going to have a nice bud to it.
Yay! Awesome. Okay, so then we have some, we got some red peppers, we have an eggplant. How should we go about planting those into our bed?
Sure, so these are all in the solanum family. Same with potatoes as well, and some other recognizable veggies, fruits, depending on how you want to classify them. They have a range of habits. They're not as typically large as your tomatoes are. Most of your peppers are going to be on the smaller side. They do need support, especially with these afternoon winds we get. So it's important that we have some kind of stakes to tie them to. Tying is an option. It's something you want to consider. So a lot of folks will end up using this like vinyl plastic twine. I think it's an okay option, but my preference is not to have additional plastics in the garden when I don't need it. My preference would be jute twine, something that's great. You can compost at the end of the year. If we need something heavier duty, we also have this chain lock. This might be a better option for a really large tomato. Might be a little bit overkill for the peppers and what have you. And then I'm particularly partial to something like this. This is going to be a wire foam covered thing. It's like a little bread tie, but it's not going to damage your plant stems.
Alrighty. And so with planting in a bed compared to planting in a pot, there's some major differences, right? So what are we talking about when it comes to planting in a pot versus planting in a bed?
So I actually consider raised beds to be a really big pot. Your water is going to move through the soil similarly, but the big difference is the amount of surface area you have. So we were prepped for this, that we have 1/4 inch drip line installed. That's going to give even water distribution across the whole thing. If we maximize where the water can go, the plant's roots are going to follow that. So that's going to give us a nice big plant and not restrained. When you're talking about pots, maybe we're limited on patio space, or as I have done, bought too many tomatoes and we're desperate to get one more in. Just give it a big enough pot for the particular plant. So if your peppers, I'd say minimum 5 gallons. I'd like to go 7 to 10 gallons better. Eggplants closer to 10 gallons or up. Tomatoes, unless you're dealing with a small compact variety, definitely stick to the larger pot size as well.
Okay, so should we start digging some holes and start planting some vegetables?
Yeah. Great. So simplest thing on these guys, be gentle about the root ball, but you don't have to baby them. They're not glass.
Should.
And dig a sizable root hole for these guys. We amended these with organic matter, so the roots get well established. It's not compacted. Unlike the tomato that we buried, you do want to keep your plants, your peppers and your eggplants at the same level. They don't have that nifty little trick where they're going to root deep below. Like I said, got it even. We already fertilized this bed, but if you hadn't already fertilized your plants, you're going to want to use fertilizer. You can use organic if that's your preference. You can use a non-organic granulated. Even worth maybe putting in some materials like oyster shell or blood meal. Always to your manufacturer's instructions, and that'll get them off on a nice start.
All right. Well, if you guys have any other questions when it comes to planting in a garden bed, of course, you can always head over to a Grange Co-op store to learn from the best, the professionals, or you can always head to our website at KDRV.com to learn more information about planting in a bed. But thanks so much for joining us in the garden.